Back in England, thank goodness, September 2nd. Mum and Dad were meant to meet me at Heathrow Airport, but it turned out there was just one last nasty surprise waiting for me when we finally landed. Turned out that my new sister, Lucy, had caught some sort of virus. It wasn't anything very serious, just one of those things that newborn babies often get. But she had to go back into hospital for the night, and Mum and Dad were with her. Sarah's name was called out over the intercom, and we lugged our cases over to the information desk where we were given the news. I'd have to stay at her house, just for the night. Mum and Dad would come and pick me up in the morning. So it was back to Fulham and the Victorian Terrace. I have to say that I walked with a certain feeling of dread. It was Sarah's house now, of course, but it had once been Nigel's. I could still feel him there. It wasn't just his ghost. In a way, it was worse than that. The drab wallpaper and the shelves stuffed with fat, serious books. The old-fashioned furniture. The heavy curtains blotting out the light. The smell of damp. It was as if his spirit was everywhere. He was dead, but while we were in the house, his memory lived on. Aunt Sarah must have felt it too. Before she'd even unpacked, she rang an estate agent and told him that she wanted to put the house on the market immediately. She said she planned to emigrate to Florida. We had supper together, takeaway Chinese, but neither of us ate very much, and we hardly talked at all. She wanted to be on her own, I could tell. In a funny way, she seemed almost suspicious of me. I noticed her glancing at me once or twice, as if she was worried about something. It was as if she'd been waiting for me to blame her for Nigel's death. But it hadn't been her fault. She hadn't done anything wrong. Had she? I went to bed early that night, in the spare room, but I couldn't sleep. I found myself thinking about everything that had happened. Over and over again, the pieces went through my mind until a picture began to form. I rolled over and tried to think of something else, but I couldn't. Because what I was seeing now, what I should have been seeing all along, was so horribly obvious. I have plans. That's what Sarah told my mum before we left for the holiday. She hadn't wanted me to come from the very start. It was almost as if she'd known what was going to happen and hadn't wanted me to be there as a witness. She hadn't made Uncle Nigel lie in the sun, but now I thought about it, she never discouraged him. And his death hadn't upset her at all. She'd been drinking rum and dancing with waiters before they'd even discovered the corpse. No, it was crazy. After all, she had packed all those bottles, the different suntan lotions. She even rubbed them in for him. As I lay in the darkness, I remembered the yellow ooze spilling out of the bottle, rippling through her fingers as she massaged his back. Once again I smelled it, thick and greasy. At the same time, I remembered something Nigel had said after we'd arrived. He'd been examining one of the bottles and he said, "Have you opened this?" Maybe that's what made me get up. I couldn't sleep. Anyway, so I got up and went downstairs. I don't know why I tiptoed, but I did. And there was Aunt Sarah, standing in the kitchen, humming to herself. She was surrounded by bottles. I recognised them at once. Factor 15, Factor 9, Factor 4, the water-resistant oil, the hypoallergenic oil, and the other oil. The before-sun and the after-sun protection. She was emptying them one at a time into a large green tin, and no matter what it said on the labels, it was the same gold-coloured oil that poured into the tin. And I guessed that this was where the oil had come from in the first place. Quick cook vegetable oil for faster frying. Big red letters on the side of the tin. My aunt continued, emptying the bottles, getting rid of the evidence. I crept back to bed and counted the hours until my parents finally came.